Minakshi, welcome to Restrocast. Almost bartending as a girl, as a woman. I still don't see a lot of women behind the bar. So what happened there? What was the drama there?
My parents didn't speak to me for about 8 months. My father was the one who told me to quit my job and start the bar. I would clear tables. I would ask people for, can I repeat your drink? And I would take orders. I would give their bills. We became like friends with guests. Times Nightlife gave us an award for best bar, best cocktail, best ambience, which was very shocking to us. Finally, Sidecar happened in 2017,
Why not do it for your own when you're spending that time anywhere?
Bars function differently than restaurants. There's a big difference between the two, like in terms of the product. What I'm selling is not just drinks. I'm selling environment, experience, vibe, as they say, all of this.
In the last 13 years, let's say from 2012 to now, what has changed in Minakshi as a person? Minakshi, welcome to Restrocast.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here.
So Minakshi, last few years, I mean, one is that congratulations on Sidecar, because I think you're hands down one recommendation anybody in Delhi will get to try cocktails, to go and have a great time. I'm a fan, so
Oh, thank you.
so I think it's not something that I just only heard. I've experienced what Sidecar is about. How does it feel for being where you are? And then we'll go into ki ye hua kaise? How did you even reach here?
I mean, it's an interesting question. How does it feel? I mean, it feels great. It feels something that you haven't planned and it has come to you. I don't think anybody starts off this journey thinking that one day I'll be sitting across you and having this chat. So it's not a one singular moment of feeling it this way. But I'm really glad to be here today, to be able to do what I'm able to do. With all the success comes a whole lot of responsibilities, but they also come with a lot of happiness internally and externally, to share that with the team, with your peers, with your the people who are now coming into the industry. So I'm actually doing a lot of that as well. So that is also really keeping me very enthusiastic about the industry. I'm very passionate about it. So I'm literally like when they say you eat and drink and sleep this industry, I think that's who I am. I'm always reading something new, up for something interesting, and I think that keeps me very much excited about this industry. So yeah, I'm always very excited to be here. Like today, very happy, and I'm hoping this is how this continues.
Thank you. That's it's an honor, and we reflect the same sentiments.
Thank you.
How did it all start? Take me, we'll talk all about bars and Sidecar and your work, but tell me about your early years. How did it all start? Where, go back to your early years.
So, well, this started back in college. Now we are talking 20 years ago. I was in second year of college, and just like any other student, I was doing my hotel management, and you need a little extra money for
Which college?
IHM Pusa, New Delhi, and I was in second year, and we used to do these things called ODCs, outdoor caterings, and we used to go, get $300 for waiting on tables, going to parties. Pretty much, you have to work 4-5 hours, and get, this is just for pocket money, and pretty much pizza money is what we used to call it. And one day we got a call from somebody saying that hey, we are paying $700. Would you like to bartend? And I had no idea what that is. What does it take? And I just turned up for this job, and that's when I met my current business partner, Young Duplama. He had started off his catering business. So he had just exited his himself from the, he was working in a hotel as a bartender, bar captain, bar manager, and then moved on and started his own business of catering, like, private party catering. And I met Young Dup, and that's when I'm in college, and I go to this party, and he was a hard task master. Like today when people say that, Young Dup is so tough and all, I was like, oh my God, You don't know what he was 20 years ago. Way worse. But also in hindsight, amazing to learn from somebody like that. So that was my first interaction in a bar, which was in a private party in Delhi in a farmhouse, right? So I turn up at 4 o'clock. I start from chilling the beers to setting up the bar like from scratch, cutting all the all the misa, doing everything else that you're supposed to do, garnish, stuff like that. So it starts from there. And I continued working. Finally, people started coming to the party around 11 in the night.
Of course.
And then the party continued till about 6. And then we were told, now you can go home. And I realized that day I loved being in the bar. There was something about being in the bar, which was the energy, which was the people. People were looking at you, talking to you, asking for their drink. They remembered. So that all that started happening. And I think I really loved the attention. I loved the part of hospitality that I was making somebody really happy. Um, and it wasn't about alcohol at all. I mean, this is the funny part where a lot of people think that maybe because you like to drink, and I wasn't even, I wasn't at that time had anything to drink. So that was not the part that excited me. It was the part where I was like, oh, I started working at 4 and the day finished and it's 6 in the morning, and I'm still very much raring to go. So I think it's the rush that you get. It's almost like being in a meditative state kind of a thing that happens. And I kept doing this over a period of time, and I kept wanting to be in the bar. I loved every bit of it, and I think that is when I was like, okay, this is my calling. I have to figure this out. By the time I reached third year, I was very clear that this is what I want to do. And unfortunately, at that time, still I didn't know that it wasn't legal for women to bartend in behind the bar. This is a believe it or not,
Sorry?
please believe it or not moment that happened to me.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it even now?
No, this is the Punjab Excise Act, which turned in 2010. Before that, women were not allowed to bartend behind. They
No
were not
kidding.
allowed. No, they were not allowed. This is
You know what? I was
1933.
I was just about to ask you that, as you were painting that picture of a Delhi farmhouse party that started at 11, ended at 6 a.m., I still don't see a lot of women behind the bar.
Yeah.
So I was about to ask you that was it also a part,
Yeah,
a part to play?
back then for sure, it wasn't allowed. So I didn't even know that. So because it was a private party, private events could, kind of have this under the radar thing. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing in my career. So I wanted to do it. And then I realized, okay, I'm never going to be in the bar, right? So I'm never going to work in the bar. So when I passed out of college, I did get into a management training program. But my parents really wanted me to, like the typical you become a manager now and then you become a general manager someday. That was your
And you would
ladder.
want to be
Typical
in a
ladder.
Taj or
Yeah,
an
yeah. Typical
Oberoi.
ladder would be that. And that is what would have taken if it wasn't for bartending in this middle that happened to me. And I sort of rebelled from my parents. I told them, no, I want to do this. So for the 6 months, I did a bartending course with Youngdup. He had started his bartending school as well. So I was doing part-time bartending and studying. So doing both of them together. That's when I kind of was figuring out what will I do after this? Like, what is my future in this situation,
What
right?
year was this?
2004. 4 5, yeah. And right after that, I met Youngdup introduced me to this really, again, a startup called Taliho. They had just started off as a beverage education platform. It was a website, and I just got hired. Again, I was their first hire. So I started off doing data entry to events to, going. So they were just pretty much working around liquor companies, working with beverage education, looking at doing a lot of consumer activation, consumer workshops, promotion. So it was in the liquor space, but not really behind the bar. I think I kind of found my comfort zone, let's say, there. And then 3.5 years I did that. I traveled extensively during that time within India.
Like working for?
Massively. For Dalio, I was working. So we had projects with Smirnoff. Smirnoff was just entering India. This was the time when the multinational companies were launching international brands into India, right? So Bacardi came in, Smirnoff came in, Johnny Walker, Chivas. So these brands were just pretty much starting off. Before that, it was primarily Indian brands, who
Yeah,
were kind of
mostly.
ruling the roost. And this is when a lot of the cocktail conversation started, all of that was happening. So I kind of found myself in the middle of an amazing environment where everything was happening and I was right there. So I would travel a lot between, I traveled like every weekend, a new city was happening. So it was Calcutta, Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai. So I was constantly moving around Punjab. So every project would take me to different places, and I got amazing exposure during that time. That's when I jumped and I got an offer from Diageo to join them for Captain Morgan Rum. Very exciting times. Again, new brands coming into the industry. Lots to do. And then I moved to Ponorica after that, which is when I kind of really found my voice, I would say. Learned a lot about how to run businesses, I think, from a small entity to a larger entity, multinational companies, how they work, where
So
that comes
what
from.
part of Diageo, like what were you doing at Diageo and
Brand marketing, yeah.
brand marketing?
So I was part of the brand marketing team. Then I moved to trade marketing in Puerto Rico. Then that is when my role kind of expanded as well, where I was again taking care of. I was part of the North team for international brands, taking care of a lot of international brands together. So that's when I really learned what budgets work, how PNL
Trade
works,
marketing got you closer to the real
and
businesses
it was trade.
actually.
It was very much still. I'm still. You have to. This is the interesting part. I was still in the periphery of what I loved doing, right? So I was very much in my industry. I never left it, but I was very much in that same space of cocktails, bartending, workshops. A lot of that is happening throughout, right? And during this whole time, the dream to open a bar was there. I made my first Excel sheet. I still have that in 2008. To open a bar. And I just still remember we called a very, very, very famous restaurant here now. I mean, and I called him up and I said, can you give me a breakup of these things? How much does your kitchen cost? How much does your electric, like what is the cost of a chimney, and questions like that I asked. And I remember he gave me this whole proper 1 hour detailed call, which was amazing. And this is when I made my first sort of it's like
Business
a
plan.
dream bar plan happening. And this is when Young Dup and I were talking, right? So we were still talking about, hey, someday there has to be a bar plan. But I was working in my own way, and Young Dup was, so we were in touch. We knew each other. We were kind of working with each other as consultant, as I was a client. I mean, he was kind of my trainer. So a lot of those things were happening. We were in the same industry very much, but kind of paving the way for more things to come. But yeah, I mean, I think the final realization came around 2012 when I was like, okay, we have to do this and we have to do something now. Um,
So you wrote the plan in 2008, but 2008 to 12, you were still with
I was
Pernod?
with, yeah, Diageo Pernod this whole time. Pretty much all my bosses knew. So I remember my last boss in Puerto Rico asked me, what do you want to do in 5 years? And I said, I'll have a bar called Cocktails and Dreams. This is 2008 interview, yeah? And the bar opened in 2012. And he was there on the first day the bar opened, opening night. I mean, I consider him a mentor. And he was there and he's like, Minakshi, you've done it. Very few people know exactly what they want and they did it. And I don't know, now, today's younger generation talks about manifestation a lot. And I was like, oh, maybe that's what I was doing. But we didn't have
That
this
is that
word.
is that is true manifestation. I mean, that's
Yeah, but we didn't have this word then, right? But you see, manifestations, I wasn't dreaming. I was working on this, right? I was constantly doing something or the other. When I would travel, I mean, I would go to like a 10D, right, in Hyderabad and hang there and be like, this is a cool bar. Like, what does 10 Downing have? Or go to some place in Calcutta and see the vibe, right?
yeah.
That's the vibe you want in a fun, easy neighborhood bar. But we want good cocktails, we want good service. So, kind of put this whole piece together. So, it was working. It was always, I would say, work in progress. We were always there. Yeah, we just
You're
didn't know
not
when
only
it will
you were not
happen.
only dreaming it, but you were living it I mean, each 1% every day.
Yeah, and we even knew the name because I had already done my sheet before that. That's how I knew the name of the place.
It's funny because I was last weekend I was speaking at a conference, like a personal growth transformation conference in Goa, and this is what I said to 200 people. I said, manifestation doesn't work. Manifestation works when you work.
Yeah.
सो ये सिर्फ मैनिफेस्टेशन हो जाएगा और कुछ हो जाएगा, अगर ऐसे होता तो फिर
हाँ,
तो
आँखें बंद करके don't start dreaming. You have to make it. I think manifestation with intent is what I feel. Like you are now, if I'm assuming tomorrow I want to look like, I don't know, Kim Kardashian. I have to work on this, right?
well,
I don't know why I thought of a name, but
not only you but a lot of doctors also have to work on you, but
I
I
was
mean,
like, yeah, you know what I mean. You have to do something
I
about
mean,
that.
you
You have to
picked Kim
stop
Kardashian,
eating.
so
Stop
yeah.
eating chola bhature today. Yeah. So somewhere, so what I mean was that you have to be in your zone, and I think I've always been that. I think I started. I would say. Uh, I mean, looking at newsletters, reading books. My first book was Joy of Mixology that I read, for cocktails, and I still go back to it, and I'm like, this is what it is, right?
What's that
And
book about? Is it like
it's a bar book. It's a
recipe book?
bar, yeah, it's a bar book written by this amazing legend, late Gary Regan, and he was someone whole of our industry looks up to, right? He was one of the, let's say, pioneers of the cocktail age, the second era, the golden era of that we are in right now, and it's beautiful that he was one of those people who could inspire from a distance. Like I remember reading the newsletters that he would write, and we would get it on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and I was one of the subscribers. Remember when there was newsletters
Yeah,
back in the day? Like there was
yeah.
no social
RSS
media,
feeds and
and we used to have newsletters, and I remember looking forward to it and reading about stuff that he's doing or what he's going to, or what are the trainings happening, which are the new cocktails going on. I remember reading in New York, you know um, Milk and Honey is opened, and these are the times when there were no speakeasies that had nobody had heard of, and
and that is
so we
exactly
were.
what my next question is, because I remember the era when your first bar came up, and I remember Delhi like yesterday, Delhi of that time. There was no speakeasy scene. N- Not that there were no speakeasies, nobody was even looking for it, like, so there was no demand per se.
No,
I mean, maybe in
no.
your own bubble, people knew it, but
No,
from
there
a
was
consumer
yeah.
perspective, nobody was looking for a speakeasy, nobody was asking for even cocktails. And Delhi has, I think, in last 10 years, or rather I would say 7 years, have still turned very differently. But back in 2011, 2012, it was still a straight drinks, whiskey,
Very
hard,
much.
yeah, whiskey market, straight drinks, that's it,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
uh, how was that even?
I would say we were very naive. Like today, you can say it, I think, and I can admit it to you, a little foolish to not know a few things. Coming from a business point of view, right? And when you say that you started a speakeasy in the middle of a really, I would say, old school market in the middle of Gurgaon, out of all the places, you're not like exactly in High Street, and.
And Gurgaon of then was not even
Was
Gurgaon of
then,
today.
yeah, there was no cyber hub, none of this, right? So we literally were pretty naive, I would say. I mean, the first rule of anybody you speak to is location, 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 top three things that you should be doing. And we went the opposite. I think we realized in the first year that we have made a blunder, right? In the sense that, okay, now we've opened this place, we think it's really cool. Who's going to come for it, right? What's like, we think, okay, our world has come and experienced this, great, fantastic. They like cocktails, but where is the consumer, right? So it was a little, I would say, naive of us to not have this vision at all. But I think we really persevered. I think we were really at it. We kind of dug deep, and I think what really helped us do it was the low cost of operations. You
Hmm.
understand this from your, you know, back in the day restaurateur time.
Correct.
I think our cost of, our OPEX was so low that we couldn't bleed. We wouldn't have bled.
That's
Like
a big
our
one.
rent was like, I'm telling you, it wasn't even a lakh. So let's kind of put it now in perspective, right? Um, and so when we got this rental in the basement, ground and basement space with a little bit like 5 employees. So just imagine, you can right now only calculate in your head what is my monthly cost coming to. I'm taking orders and I'm serving, and Young Group is bartending. So this is your cost of operations is this, right? And then you have three, four other waiters, servers, a little small little kitchen. What really helped us survive this difficult first 6 months to a year was this time where we could really hang in there, and hang in with the concept. And slowly, steadily, people started coming in. We struggled. The first year was a struggle. We had many zero sale days. We had days when no one came, and I was like, oh my god, we are a speakeasy. People have to first look for it, you know, like nobody knows where we are.
Also, are we too hidden? Have we done a very good job, Speakeasy?
Yeah, like this is terrible, right? It's going exactly the opposite. Like people say, oh, put the biggest signage up and, tell the world you're here.
Yeah,
And the concept of speakeasy is the other way around. It's supposed to be a secret,
correct. Hidden.
hidden space.
Yeah.
And we actually were exactly, against the tide in a lot of ways. A lot of people thought we are some English speaking course, like those schools which teach English. So they said, oh, you're speakeasy, like speakeasy.
You,
So I
you
was
had that. You had
we put
those.
the board up,
Mm.
and we had guests who came in and asked us that. It was a very
Damn, that
tough.
that reminds me of early 2000s. Not early 2000s. I think 99 2000. I was still in school, but I was quite close to computers. What your relationship to mixology or alcohol, or
Yeah.
it was my relationship to computers.
Yeah.
I will hang around just computer.
Yeah.
That's all. Even if it is switched off, I'll be hanging around it.
Yeah.
Quite
Yeah.
literally at times. And I remember cyber cafes were popping up everywhere. And they used to be empty. And I'm talking about 99. They were empty. And kids, especially school kids, were not supposed to be in.
Yeah.
But it's an empty cyber cafe. So the poor guy looks
Yeah.
at me and he's about to tell me to buzz off, but then he's like, "Ki, bro, koi aur hai bhi nahi, to tu hi aa ja."
हाँ.
And I remember कि मैं वहाँ बैठा हूँ and लोग आके कह रहे हैं कि भाई साहब कॉफी मिलेगी क्या? And I'm looking at that guy's face and I'm like, bro, बहुत लंबी जर्नी है ये.
Same story. Yeah. It was yeah, very similar. We struggled, like I said, but it took time. But it kind of, because of the operational cost being low and manageable, we were able to run that course really well. We didn't have to change anything about our identity. We got a lot of feedback saying DJ laga do, chicken tikka serve karo. We got all of that, and I think people are well meaning with the intent of giving you
Sure,
feedback,
sure.
and that's what we got. And we were like, okay, नहीं होगा तो plan B तो है ही. You can go back to the corporate. मतलब job तो मिल ही जाएगी. So I was very confident like that, and it kind of worked really well, because that moment when this was happening, we were like not worried that this is gonna crash, because nobody knows, right? You just open something and it shuts up. What's the big deal? Like, you carry on with your life. So it's sort of, the stake was really low in that sense. I was 28, and that time, how it is, right? It's all like, when you're that young and stupid, you do stuff.
Entrepreneurial optimism mixed with
It's
stupidity.
beautiful though. It's
It's
a very
potent
nice
cocktail.
it's a very nice thing to not have the vision to see कि 2 साल में क्या होगा, कौन आ रहा है. You have no idea.
True that.
But you sort of are very enjoying this journey a lot. It was a very joyful time also, I would like to say. It's tough, but when you look at hindsight, it's a beautiful
But I think
journey.
your insight is really very, very deep and great, because most of the people, and especially in case of restaurants and restaurant bars, because of that location, what comes in is rent. And when your OPEX is heavy, most of the places, actually the well-meaning good ones, great concepts,
Yeah.
great food,
Yeah.
like people have done all the right things, but they burn down because they burn so fast that even though they are getting better and smarter, they are run out of time.
And I would have wanted to be in South Delhi. We went everywhere in Delhi. I'm telling you, we never wanted to be in Gurgaon. You know how it's like, but we didn't have the money. We couldn't afford, GK and Vasant Vihar and all these, the high street typically.
Till you could.
We couldn't, right? So, but that time we were like, oh my God, what is this rental? This will not work. And thankfully, we were in that space to understand this much about business. This is the background of where we came from, right? The 10 years of corporate helped me figure this space out, where I'm like, okay, no, this is not going to work, because how is this going to come back to us, right? So we were very conscious of that. While we were optimistic, but we did know that we have to save money, right? So I think that understanding really helped us. And we did a lot of things. It was completely bootstrapped. So, and everything was like shoestring budget, right? Apna khud hi furniture banao, खुद ही म्यूजिक सिस्टम लगाओ, खुद ही डीजे बन जाओ. So it was
which eventually becomes the
which
vibe.
was also eventually the joy of doing this. So a lot of the guests who came initially are still like family, right? I've introduced people, they've got married, they've had children, I've gone to their baby showers, and I've just attended somebody's birthday who I have introduced, right? Now that's the joy of the real, like, imagine this timeline. That is the initial first round of people who came in and they were like, oh my God, what is this place? Because who've traveled, right? People who've traveled, who've been to US, who've been to
Correct.
Europe are like, these are the kind of bars that we want, where are the cool young people hanging right now? And it was really good. And we also got really great, let's say, push from the media at that time. So Time Out was a big fan of ours. I remember Little Black Book had just launched. Suchita had just launched Little Black Book. We got some, like we were all kind of together in this space of new, cool, young things were happening. Food Talk India had just launched, so Shuchir used to come all the time to us. So there was this sort of a young energy happening. PCO had just opened. So PCO opened 2 months before us. And this is in Vasant Vihar, right? So
Yeah,
again,
no,
that was a speakeasy.
in my head, PCO was a little later.
No, so speakeasy 2 months before us. So we were all ready. We didn't get a license, Haryana. So, we didn't get a license and they had a license and they opened. I remember telling Young Dope, oh my God, and this is a very, very good friend of ours from the industry, Vaibhav, who was running PCO that time. I was very happy for him. And when we kind of went to pick up our first award, we were all both together. It was such a joyful time because I feel like we were it was a very great community
I think
feeling.
you're right. I didn't remember PCO, but I now
No, I
feel
know
that you guys were
exactly.
you were the first
Yeah,
speakeasy.
and we used to send people to PCO because a lot of people used to say, oh, you're such a cool bar. Where else can I get a good old fashioned or a great bartenders who can talk and all? I'll be like, go to PCO, go say hi to Arijit, meet Vaibhav. These are all like really good friends of ours. And still to date, we are really good friends. So it's a very nice thing to see that, we've sort of been in this for 20 years and whatever. So, I feel like really old when I say that, but it's lovely.
I totally hear you. Trust me.
Yeah, I hate saying back in the day, but it feels like somewhere to drop that.
We'll go a little back before. Why HM? And give me a little bit of your background growing up. What's family like?
How interesting. My entire background is I'm an Air Force kid. So my dad was in the Indian Air Force, born Gujarat, Bhuj, dry state. Never been back. But yeah, so I've studied in about 8 schools, different schools, south, east, north, all over pretty much India. Traveled a lot every 2 years, shifted a new place, new base. I think because of that, I was a very inquisitive person. I was always a very social person. I was never good at studies. Always been a very mediocre child. My father wanted one of us to become a doctor kind of thing. The old school, like, ek engineer banna chahiye, ek doctor banna chahiye, ek IAS banna chahiye type of thing. My siblings, I have an elder brother, elder sister, all were very bright in studies, and all my sisters are doctorate, all of that, and gold medalist. And so I kind of the youngest, and I kind of turned out to be the
Quintessential youngest child of the
naughtiest.
family.
Yeah, I was pushed
जिसके
into
ऊपर कोई pressure
sciences.
नहीं है, सारा ऊपर वालों ने ले लिया.
I pushed into sciences, and I cried my eyes out, and I told dad that I can't do science. So I kind of navigated that space, and finally he realized, I think dad realized that nahi hoga science. So then I moved, and it was a friend of mine who was applying for hotel management. So I was like, hey, I'll also apply. You don't know, right? In 12th, what are you going to do? Like, you have no idea. I was in the artsy. I was always an artsy kind of a child. History, English, all of that. Then and I went to hotel management just completely clueless.
Random.
What I'm going to do. I think I just went in because it sounded fun, like new people you're going to meet and you're going to work in a hotel type of thing, right? I had no idea what this means. I think the first 6 months you have no idea what's happening. The only good thing is that you can speak English well. These are all qualifiers, funnily, in your industry, in hotel industry, and you would know this in hospitality industry. Qualifiers are looks,
correct,
English, and they say communication skills, and communication skills boil down to only English.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with tumhari Hindi kaisi hai, how you expressing yourself,
exactly.
body language.
Yeah,
There is none of this.
expression.
None of this matters. So your English is fine. You should be in the front office. You should be in the back office. It's like that. I really enjoyed being in the kitchen when I did my industrial training at Taj Palace, New Delhi. I loved being in the kitchen. I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed F&B service. One thing I didn't like was this lobby, front office, and housekeeping, and all of that was really like backbreaking work. But that is when I kind of shifted towards bartending after that. But yeah, hotels, I kind of found them a little too rigid for my liking. To be working in hotels, I felt like that's so process driven. They sometimes it's great to be that, and I see the benefits of it as an entrepreneur. I know how important processes are, and I'm a big fan of all of that they are able to do, and how to scale and stuff like that. But also, it's a big hindrance to creativity. So for the younger entrepreneurs and the ones who are starting off, it's kind of, you have to navigate that space of, you can't be like a wild artist, but you also have to know your numbers and have this space, right? So I think that's what hotels tell you, like teach you in a very good way.
So,
They
what did your parents think when you attached yourself to the world of alcohol and almost bartending
Oh, they hated it.
as a girl, as a woman, while as you just told me, it was not even legal. I didn't know that. So what happened there? What was the drama there?
They hated it. My parents didn't speak to me for about 8 months. So I had shifted out in Delhi, living with a friend of mine in Safdarjung. And I remember that's when I was doing my studying bartending, and actually bartending in the night as well. They were like, there is no way, a daughter of ours is going to do this sort of thing. And, what will tell our family? What do I tell? Usual issues that happen. Um, I think then they came around, when they came to see me, they realized that I'm not leaving this. And this is not something that is just it's not just another
Like you
tantrum.
moved out of you moved out
Yeah, my
on
dad
your
was
own.
had posted out of Delhi, so I was anyways right out of college. I had to move out and live somewhere, but I was completely out of touch with them because they didn't approve of it. Typically, they would have helped me set up a house or live somewhere, like
Sure.
wherever, like but you're right out of college, you earn really little. But yeah, we were completely out of touch. It was a tough time. Those 8 months were really tough. And I think then they came around, and they realized, I feel like mom knew that she's not letting it go. So I think somewhere we worked our differences out, and then they saw. And then by then I was moving to Taliho. I was working in like a desk job, so suddenly they started approving my timing and
You had a corporate
hours.
label on what you were trying to
Yeah,
do.
okay, she's working in a startup. So that's completely shifted their attitude towards it. But I still continue talking about alcohol, liquor industry, all of that. And I think they realize that how much I love it. And yeah, I think in a matter of a few years, I mean, the biggest support that I've had is my family. My father was the one who told me to quit my job and start the bar. And he's like, how long are you going to talk about it? I think you should do it. And you should do it before you get married. Which was really amazing, right? Because typically parents tell you the opposite. They said,
Hmm.
बेटा शादी कर लो, फिर
Hmm.
उसके बाद तुम जो करना है, husband के साथ करना, what of,
Scam.
no, but also do it with your husband
Yeah.
type of stuff, right? But my father was the opposite. He's like my biggest support. Um, he has always been my biggest support, and he's the one who actually made me move. He was my first investor, like I say always. He gave me the money, like, for go ahead and do this, and he's like, well, what is the worst case? Like, go back to the job, man. It's okay. And I think if I didn't have that sort of a backing, I don't
Hmm.
think you can just leave your really comfy, cozy corporate job. I was doing really well,
Hmm. Hmm.
traveling to various parts of the world, feeling this amazing high. When you're young and you're single and you're earning that much money, and corporate can really spoil you. You
I mean, alcohol companies, of
you do
course.
get a little like in your head, and I think I was, and I from there, from earning that much to suddenly going to zero was like a shocker. And I was like, oh my god, I can't buy this bag. Like your biggest thing was brands. And I think when you're at that age, you're like enjoying that materialistic stuff too much. So I was in that headspace, and I think somewhere, the reality hits you, right? When you don't earn anything, you went to zero. So I think that's what helped me come back to ground zero.
Beautiful. Back to Speakeasy. So you said first year was difficult, and honestly, I'm still thinking because I thought that it would have been difficult for a little longer. So are you saying that after year one, it started kind of coming around?
Yeah, yeah. So sort of it sort of worked like for multiple ways for us, and I would say, like, one is that, of course, as founders, we were pretty much the only founders that I know of who were serving and making drinks at that time, right? Where
Hmm.
we could just approach tables. I would clear tables. I would ask people for, can I repeat your drink? And I would take orders. I would give their bills. We became like friends with guests. Like, yeah, how it happens in the West, right? It's like
Yeah.
I'm running the show. So we would do morning to evening. This is what I had. I didn't have anything else to do. And so did Young Dope. Young Dope would typically come and bartend. He was the one who's behind the bar. Suddenly, that I think that gave us a huge plus, which was a big plus. And I also feel that because we were really slow in business, every guest was like a VVIP for us, right? Imagine you only have 4 tables today.
Hmm.
Those 4 tables felt like they are like the cat's whiskers. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Today's time we take everybody for granted all the time, and I tell this to our team all the time that it's so easy to just hey, I'm in this mall which has this much footfall, and so I'm getting like 1,000 people, well, 100 people a day walking in. I don't know who they are, but when we used to be in the bar, we used to know everybody. We know everybody. We knew everybody's bosses. We knew everybody's spouses. We got to know everybody. We even knew who's breaking up and who's hooking up or who's doing whatever. So we knew all of it, right? So that was the moment where it all worked together, because there was a lot of the, like, we fortunately won an award. Times Nightlife gave us an award for best bar, best cocktails, best ambience, which was very shocking to us, because we're like, who's noticing us? Like, you're like, you don't even have the money to pay anybody or do any of this. And when we got this award, I was like, oh my goodness, like, and the first time going up to the stage and winning an award is when you realize that maybe you're doing something okay.
Hmm.
Like, that's your external validation that comes. And I think that gives you um, that push probably that you need, right? Especially the newer restaurateurs, newer bar owners who get into the industry and suddenly get that validation. It does help massively. It didn't help in terms of just the business. It also helps you just be more confident in your skin. It's okay if you're not making any money, but you will continue to do this slowly and steadily, and you will get there. What I mean by the first year being tough, and then after that, is what I mean is that first, financially, maybe the stress lasted for 2 years, but the the stress was never to make the money back. It wasn't anybody's money. We didn't have any loans. We had nothing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like I said, I think that also gave us the complete freedom to be like, "Ye mera paisa hai. I will figure it out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work." So it wasn't that the stake was so high for us, and I think that's why we could take the risk, and that's why we were okay. You win some, you lose some, sort of a thing, and you'll carry on. And I feel that is what really helped us to, in those 2 years, to stay the course. And then we started getting noticed, and people came from all over. We used to get a lot of people from Delhi coming, and where all we got listed in Time Out London. And that's when we were like, oh my god, people are noticing us. Like, there were things happening simultaneously in a lot of places. People talking about our bar or us somewhere, and then little media coverage happened.
So when did you think about like the next one? What was the evolution from there from a business point of view?
And I don't think it was very organic. All our growth has been organic. It has never been like, okay, the year 1, year 2, year 10, year, nothing like that. It was very organic. It was a very time and place and moment sort of a growth for us. Um, as people, that is who we are. I don't think I can change that about myself, or I don't think even Young Dope can change that about him. Like, both of us as co-founders, we are very we're kind of like the joy seekers of the industry. Like, so, like, right now I'm really enjoying what I'm doing today. You know what I mean? Like, what I'm working on in the next
Hmm.
few
Hmm.
months. I'm not
Hmm.
thinking what this does a year down the line, 2 years down the line. I'm not doing that right now, and I feel like that is who I am. I'm not saying that's what everyone should do. You have to know yourself kind of deeper to understand what that means. um Sidecar came around in 2018 for us, but we started looking for locations and we met our. Um, we also had a part investor in Sidecar. So we met him around 2016. And we kept looking and kept talking, and Youngdup knew him from earlier.
Hmm.
So it really worked. It kind of worked in a friendship sort of a way. And most of our people that we've partnered with are people like that, like people you can have a good drink with, enjoy the conversation with. It doesn't have to be about numbers. I think
Hmm.
that because this industry is like that, it's not, unless you're only an investor and you're going to stay out of it the entire time and you have no role to play. If that is your role, that is good. But if you are somebody who is invested in terms of passion and interest, then you have to like each other, right? As partners. So yeah, and then we met our then partner. We used to get a lot of people approached us during that time to open new places. We went around, lots of location hunting, all of that happened. Finally, yeah, Sidecar happened in 2017. Yeah, then we started working on and then yeah, 2018 we opened.
And this time you were going absolutely reverse, like 180-degree out, right? You were in the uh, like top location, top rent. I'm
We
assuming.
made some money.
And I mean,
That's what happened.
affordability is one part. No, affordability is one part. But you know, when you do what you did at Speakeasy for almost 6 years, and the fact that it worked out and it
Yeah.
gave you all the cred and all the money and all the success, all the happiness till then, why do you not replicate that in an obscure location and do a part two? And now that you're more equipped, rather than go exactly outside of your thesis and go in the center of the madness, and top rent and everything is high, like why did you do that?
So our dream was always Delhi. It's always been Delhi. Like I said, day one, we started with Delhi. We always wanted to be in South Delhi, not even Delhi, like South Delhi, okay, specifically to these specific locations. And I feel like if you have a product, the kind of product we were like, okay, this is where this audience is ready for a product like this. Because we couldn't afford Delhi earlier, we went to Gurgaon. And Gurgaon worked for us because we were there. We were physically present day in and day out to
Sure.
do this first 2 to 3 years. That moment, that time was extremely essential for building us up for everything. Even today, I'm sitting on the success of Speakeasy. I mean, we talk about it all the time that all our brands are sitting on the success of the first bar. Because if that wouldn't have happened, that's the legacy, right? That's where the culture got created. That's made us. I didn't know what is being an entrepreneur before that. I had no idea, right? Nor did probably Young Dub. He was not a bar owner before this. So we kind of had our own. We were kind of born there. I always say this, right? This is also not just our. It's like you're not just your. It's like your first child,
Mm.
where you also become a parent for the first time, right? So it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of that space, and we wanted to always be in Delhi, and we got the opportunity. This time we had some money. So we were like, okay, now we can do our dream bar. Okay, now finally we will do the bar that we wanted to do. Maybe 6 years ago, if we had the money, maybe we would have done Sidecar then, you know. And why not? We would have, right? Why would have never chosen Gurgaon if it was a purely a decision of finances to be in Gurgaon. We didn't know like this corporate movement will happen at this speed and this
Yeah.
growth will happen at this speed. Yeah, we knew corporate is there, and good neighbors we had good younger audience, but we were like, these are much more price conscious audience. Will they have cocktails? We don't know, you know. So when Sidecar came along, that was like a dream bar. I was like, I always wanted to have a library. So I went ahead and created a bookstore. I always wanted to do an amazing coffee program. I went ahead and found a coffee partner. Young Dup wanted the most fanciest ice machine. He bought the fanciest ice machine. So we went ahead and created what we really wanted to create. So this was the realization, when you have the money, you make your dream house, right? So it's sort of like that. So Sidecar was that for us, and we knew that the people who are around us, the
Mm.
the vicinity, the catchment, the TG is right. I'm a marketing person in and out, right? So this is one thing I understand: culture, marketing, fit, community. And so Speakeasy was built on that as well. So there was a lot of community work we did. We worked on bands, live bands, book readings, cocktail workshops. We were at it. Our programming is extensive. Even today, our programming is extensive. We work with a lot of chefs for pop-ups. We do, cocktail workshops to coffee workshops to book readings to, sessions. We have vinyl listening. So we have live bands. So you have like the week has 3 to 4 things happening. So there's a constant community and culture push happening, right? There's an intellectual nest to it. It's not just a food and drink place. So you're getting something extra when you come, you know.
Sure.
Um, that's what we did at Sidecar. So we went ahead and like created an entire dream bar, and we since then we haven't stopped. So we've been at it creating the similar sort of. So our DNA is the same, I would say. So DNA has always been neighborhood bar. So in a different neighborhood.
And how has this journey, I mean, changed you? Like when you look back, do you introspect in last 13 years, let's say from 2012 to now, what has changed in Minakshi as a person?
Lots, I think. And I would say that I've definitely become calmer, a little more like, I'm not reacting immediately. I think it teaches time. Maybe age also does that to people, but mostly the experiences that you have with people, you become more patient. You sort of become more forgiving in a lot of ways to people's, I would back in the day, if someone's late for a meeting, I would be very. mm, this is my background. This is my upbringing. I think defense services, whatever it is. I'm still a very very punctual person, but it gives me a little bit of anxiety. I'm just giving you an example. Like back in the day, if someone would be late, I would immediately label them as they're tardy or they're not serious about their work or they are this and that. And now I think I'm learning, it's not necessarily true. It's something that I think is, but maybe this is how they function. And, you know, it's up to them, to each their own, as how you understand. I think that you learn that. You obviously learn a lot about money and business at the end of it. You also learn a little more diplomacy, I would say, as you progress in business. Um, to
Where do you move at?
Yeah, and I don't think I am still a very diplomatic person as such, but I definitely speak my mind for sure, 100%. But I've also realized that it's okay to not say something if you have to. Like, don't have to contribute to this mess. It's not my mess. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's there situations which I'm just talking about just from a change of your.
That kind of learning does not come cheap.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's it's like saying that, okay, this is just whatever. This is not my scene. Like, and so, we were talking about it earlier also. Um, Running a bar or bars in Delhi NCR comes with its own, pressures and
Hmm.
the kind of people you have to
Yeah.
handle and all. It teaches you a lot of things. I mean, I have changed from that perspective a lot. I've become, like I said, like, as diplomatically speaking as possible. I've become nicer about all that. I would have been the one, dharna deke types person. Like
Hmm.
I was that. So I was a very like yeah, in that
What
space.
about the business practices? Like, I think business that you are in, and I mean, I say this with bias, but I say this also because I'm biased differently as well. I was a restaurateur in Delhi. I am born and raised in Delhi. So I say this with a lot of authority, ownership, and vulnerability. This is a dirty business.
Hmm.
Business of running restaurants and then business of running restaurant bars can be dirty business. And dirty, I mean, in the sense that you're not always dealing with best of the people, the most well-behaved people in all directions, from your from your staff at times to the customers who walk in, to vendors you deal with. My experience, short-lived. I was a restaurateur for 2 years, barely, but I remember that at the fag end of those 2 years, a friend of mine met me after a very long time, and he saw me just talking, functioning around the restaurant. And I was not even running the restaurant technically, right? But I just visited with him. And I remember that he came out and he said, "You know what? if you keep doing this for couple more years, I think तेरी language और तेरा दिमाग दोनों खराब हो जाएंगे. And that was a first shock. Like somebody just slapped me hard because मेरे लिए तो सब नॉर्मल चल रहा था.
Yeah, right.
उसके लिए शॉकिंग था क्योंकि वो मेरे से 1-1.5 साल बाद मिला. And I suddenly felt like, oh shit, did I change that much? And I had to really, backtrack and first figure out कि क्या-क्या change हुआ है.
Yeah.
So it's not the kindest business to be in
Right.
on the receiving side.
Right.
What has changed in that area, or was it even your reality?
No, I don't. No, I think that everybody has their own trajectory of, the business. I came from a corporate background, working in multinational companies. Young group also came from a hotel background. But we both came from a certain level of understanding that we were not the typical business, businessmen, businesswomen who knew how to hustle, right? So we didn't know this. So we approached this in a very so the only way we knew, was that we will do it right, and we will do we'll make cocktails, we'll serve people well, we'll make people happy, and if it doesn't work, we get out of it. It was kind of like that, right?
The academic idealism.
A little, yeah. I would like that. That's what I use the word naive sometimes because of that. When you say all these things to me, I'm like, maybe it's true for people, but till date we have a fantastic Touchwood team of people. I think the culture in our organization is also like that. I mean, we end up kind of hiring the similar people like us. That happens all the time. So my chef is kind of like how I would be, or we work very closely with a lot of other people within the industry as well, because we also co-founded India Bartender Show last year. We work, so there's a lot of community work, there was a lot of trainings, there's a lot of skill uplifting. All of that is happening constantly, right? So you are already in a space which is a little more, I would say, academic in that sense, right? It's not necessarily only a restaurateur business. We also consult. I also work with a Diageo still to consult. I'm also on the jury of Diageo globally for cocktail, for Diageo World Class. I'm also in the education committee for Tales of the Cocktail, so which is a global bar show that happens in New Orleans every year. So this keeps us very much in line of, this is truly the why I do what I do, right? I'm so while being a bar owner, there's also very constant learning and experiencing, moving out of your workspace and getting into other people's heads constantly.
I totally hear you, and I almost want to preempt that answer of the next question. That why are there no 10 sidecars or 20 sidecars? And I'm preempting that answer because I understand that you have made it abundantly clear that you enjoy what you do, you are content with what's happening, you want to do it organically. If it happens, evolves. But still, when you're spending so much time consulting, especially, that means you necessarily have been responsible for, you and Youngdo both have been responsible for N number of bars, right? So many I know that you guys have consulted. So why not do it for your own when you're spending that time anywhere?
You mean making the same brand?
I don't know.
That's what I mean.
Why are you, like, when you are responsible for probably good double digit, bars, and you have had this experience, why not grow faster? Why did you not think about just, raising capital or maybe having a lot of partners, but, go 10, 20, 30? What's the rationale behind it?
Going back again, like turning back, you already probably know the answer here, is that it's a twofold thing, right? Bars function differently than restaurants. Okay, there's a big difference between the two, like in terms of the product. What I'm selling is not just drinks. I'm selling environment, experience, ambience, music, vibe, as they say, all of this. Restaurants are far more aligned towards the food experience and the what's on your plate experience, right? And that is still far more replicable. When I say this is the plate it has to go, you figure the process out, you know the recipe, it's to the T, and it's done. In a bar, because it's so driven by people, my bartender will vary, my neighborhoods may vary, the kind of people who come into the bar will vary. Now, you've been to Speakeasy and you've been to Sidecar. The people who walk into the two bars are very different.
Correct.
But at the crux of it, they're both neighborhood bars. They're both delivering the similar experience to the neighborhoods in which they exist. I have a lot of Google, Accenture, all this young tech, you know, young gen that comes into Speaks, right? And they are another level of category. They want less intervention. They are talking about their bosses in the evening. They are coming in for a different experience. In a GK2, we get little more artistic, little more free thinking, well traveled. That category in GK2.
Hmm.
And so the TG, the kind of people who are coming in are different, while the product is similar. So we always were conscious of the fact that this, if I take a sidecar to a Gurgaon location, this location will not work because I'm then I might be too uppity. Then I'm not giving the product to the people that I've made this for. So where as and when the replication happens, it will happen. We are not right now planning any replication of any of our bars as such. I also want to keep the novelty and the newness alive. Speakeasy was 13 years ago. Sidecar was 7 years ago. Are you interested in seeing another sidecar in Delhi? I don't know. Am I cannibalizing? I don't know. Maybe if I do another bar concept in Delhi, which is something new today.
But why I don't know. Why are you saying I don't know? I
No,
don't
I'm
know.
not.
But I
No, because
want to know
I,
what's
don't-
your
I because
rationale.
what happens, the rationale is that you're constantly compared to your flagship. You're constantly oh ये वो नहीं है जो वो था जहाँ पे हम पहली बार गए थे. It's like saying, I still remember the Monkey Bar of Indranagar. Do you remember that bar?
Yes.
What a beautiful vibe.
Yeah.
Now when Monkey Bar traveled, it changed.
Yeah.
Something happened to it. Because it wasn't the same Monkey Bar, because what we experienced there, when it came to Delhi, it was not the same. The name was the same, but obviously the franchise is the same, owners probably the same, all that is the same. But somewhere investors moved, locations moved, people changed. We've
Doesn't
had,
feel the same soul.
yeah, I don't know if you remember Blue Frog. What
Yeah.
a failure
Oh,
Blue
damn.
Frog in Delhi
Oh,
was.
damn.
And you couldn't have been more amazing as a product. I used to love Blue Frog Bombay. When Blue Frog came to Delhi, they went wrong in all sorts of ways, including location.
So, same boat.
Yeah.
Same boat.
So we were like, why is it in Mehrauli?
I was angry.
What is happening?
I was almost angry.
Yeah, what is this massive? So you know what I'm talking now. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
give you examples. I'm not. See, everybody has their own learning curves. They're all really successful, amazing people. I just heard Blue Frog is reopening. Yeah, they just announced. So it's amazing, right? So they're coming back. So, but the point is that
Bombay?
I have no idea, but
Okay,
I just read it
yeah.
yesterday. I just read it.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is that the bar. So Blue Frog was never just drinks.
Correct.
It was not just music. Yes, music was the anchor, but everything else kind of helped make you feel this amazing feeling. I don't know what it was. Maybe if Blue Frog would have come with a new identity, same people, maybe it would have worked, because then it would have been a Delhi Blue Frog, a Delhi identity. Maybe Delhi needed something else. I don't know what to say. I hate to say that, people come to Delhi and fail. It's like kind of like that in these two examples.
No, amazing. I think what you're saying is really, really deep. But I asked that question because it really blows my mind that the natural reaction, the compulsive natural reaction of an entrepreneur is that, hey, this works. Let's
no, of course,
replicate.
there's a lot of strength in the franchise. I understand that it does a lot of my work, like marketing wise, spreading the good word wise, all of that. The minute you use that name, it helps you, it opens doors, guests will come. But the pressure is on me still. The first 6 months, I might be riding the wave of existing brands, goodwill. But sooner or later, I'll have to prove it, that it is as good or not as good, it's better. And I think that is the pressure which nobody wants to start their business with. You should be like, this is a fresh product, this is interesting. and also evolving, right? It's also a trend in evolving space. It's like fashion, right? So do you want to keep having the same what you had 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago? Today is it's different, right? So if it's a constant evolving of understanding people's tastes, what they're looking for today, and it's changing very very fast. In fact, nightlife is changing like at some other level.
What's happening with Delhi bar scene? What's happening with Speakeasy? What's exactly?
I have no idea. I don't
No,
know.
you.
Because
I
it's
need to know
crazy. The
what's
number of speakeasies that are opening is crazy, which
like.
is,
It's literally happening by the weeks.
yeah,
Like
it's
every week there is
it
a
is
or
it is it's really great. I feel like it's fantastic because our world is expanding at an overall level. The more players that come into the market, the more get uplifted, right? It's how much money is getting into this. Look at this, right? Look at how many more people are going to walk into my market because suddenly GK2 has hot bars and people are like every day there's a new bar here, there's a new bar there.
Basant Lok is
Basant Lok is like that. And Basant Lok has gained a lot from that traction, right?
yeah,
Because, I mean, if somebody doesn't use wouldn't have come to GK2, might have not come to me, but they're now coming to me and they're coming to you and they're coming to you. So it's how the hubs work, right? A typical, like,
correct.
you go to Singapore, you walk across and you go Baho, Baho, Baho.
For me, the most mind blowing part is Lair. They did another one at Basant Lok. I was like, okay,
Yeah, which is a new
this is
product.
very cool, but
Yeah, they also created a new
I
product,
really want to
right?
ask them that, what was going on in their mind, because, you know, while it's a new product, it can cannibalize their existing
No,
audience.
I
No?
don't think it. No, no, like, it's not cannibalizing. I think because it's still a growing industry. We are not at a peak. No, we're nowhere near the peak, right? So it's a constant evolving, and there'll also be a churn. Remember, horse cars at one point in time had.
No, but since there was a different era, right? I mean, I am specifically talking about this newfound love for speakeasy style, experiential bars, where, I mean, I still believe that, Delhi is still catching up to appreciating cocktails for what they are, right? And unfortunately, we don't also get a lot of exotic foreign alcohol, in the city.
Yeah,
So technically, no matter what, you still haven't really
yeah.
scratched the surface of what it can be, right?
The reason for why you're seeing speakeasies and so many of them or smaller format bars also open is because of few things. One is now the bartenders, the superstar. So you notice how that has changed really fast,
Hmm.
especially after COVID, that those last 5 years have been pivotal for the bartending on the bartenders overall. They are far more confident, they are going out there, they are earning really well, and they're actually finally getting the due that they deserved. And I feel like for the longest time chefs have always adorned the covers of all magazines, and the chef shows are the biggest shows. Bartenders have always played, as like a very casual sort of, they never got the sort of, let's say,
Not the serious,
yeah,
not the
no, but they
serious
also
one.
never got the credit for creativity or,
Hmm.
doing all of these things that we actually do. That's actually the real work, right? Of creating all of these menus. How are they coming out from? Where is this happening? So, a lot of the learning has happened. In the last 5 years, you can see that the bartenders are coming of age. And this is happening all India. It's not just a
Yeah,
Delhi phenomenon, it's an all India phenomenon.
correct.
And I think that it's time, it had to come, right? And you can see the smaller formats come in because a lot of people are now understanding the smaller formats. They're manageable, smaller teams, tighter teams, better execution, more experiential stuff happening, with food and drinks both. I feel even restaurants, large format restaurants can, it's tough to run large format bars, large format restaurants, unless you're really down to the T of every aspect of
Yeah,
it.
the same thing is happening in the smaller format, like 15, 20-seater,
Yeah.
18-seater.
Yeah, a lot of omakase, smaller setups. You'll see a lot more personalized stuff happening, and I think it's fantastic because it gives the suddenly the bartenders like this major, creator and stuff like that. And I think that finally they're getting the due, and you can see that happening now far more.
But do you think that the speakeasy craze that is happening all across, or the cool bars, the smaller one but craft cocktail craze that is going up, is this gonna get corrected, or you actually think that there is so much space in the market and there's so much room that there's probably go 10x from here?
No, so I don't say, I wouldn't say that, I mean, who has a crystal ball. But what I'm trying to say is that what you can see this is that this is something that has been coming for a while. We knew this is coming, right? So it's been happening for a while. So today we are sitting on a big boom. There are various reasons at play always. So you go back a little bit to the excise policies. You go back to the government change. There are multiple things that are happening together. At the
But
back
is there a
at the
big
back of it, there is a police NOC which has been removed by the Delhi government.
Hmm.
The MCD's approval has been removed from the Delhi government. So, you know, this the annual renewal thing that was happening. So, there is definitely certain level of ease of business which is getting introduced into the play, which is what we always wanted, which is what we want actually as an industry. We want support from the government for, for the crazy revenue that we generate and the employment that we generate. um, it's you don't have to say it at least, but at least give us some good, norms, let's say. You don't have to publicly acknowledge it, but that's okay. So I think that has also been a role that has played in this current scenario that you're seeing in Delhi. Goa has that happening for a while, because again, Goa government is very pro. They understand that tourism is their backbone. They have to work on that. So I think they again have a lot of ease of business is tremendous there as well, from the policies and the way things are there. So you can see that shifting a little bit. And of course, the investor world is growing as well. So you can see a lot of people wanting to, on the side, invest in a small little place, which is less risk, which in the long run.
My theory also is that millennials have money now.
Yeah.
It's the unresolved millennial childhood issues that are now coming.
You do. Yeah, that is true. That is, I wouldn't deny that. There is, a lot of them have now, don't have to build houses. They don't have to build cars. They don't have to do anything. They're already have been given a lot of, generational wealth, etc., which has come to them, right? So it's not like they have to work towards it. So you can see that. Plus, they're traveling a lot. They're gaining a lot of experience. I don't think that this happened 15 years ago.
Correct.
That many people didn't get so much opportunity to travel, or would go out as much as these guys go out, right? So right now the current.
Yeah, my first speakeasy experience was outside India, and hence I basically said, okay,
Yeah.
this is
So you
speakeasy.
got, yeah, so we same here. So we all experienced our first cool bars outside of India mostly, right? So that's when we were like, so speakeasy per se is just a concept.
Yeah.
It can be a speakeasy, it can be a neighborhood bar, it can be a dive bar, it can be a cocktail bar, it can
Correct.
be anything. But
Correct.
it's just pretty much a shape shifting.
I think it has just become like
It's
words
just a
to
hook.
define it.
It's just a hook
Yeah.
right now. Maybe that hook
The
changes
the
to something else
the
tomorrow. But as long as the creativity and cocktails and bartenders are in the forefront, you will see this growing.
a lot of alcohol companies are worried about Gen Z drinking less. Do you see that?
So it hasn't hit us yet in India as such. I would say this is still much more skewed towards the
I
West.
see that in US.
Yeah, it's much more.
Quite.
Yeah,
It's super like in your face.
it's much more there in the West.
I see it in Bangalore.
It's there much more there, and it's also there in maybe the bigger cities. I was just coming to that. You can see that shifting towards the younger generation in the category A cities, tier 1 cities. But I would say that there's still, because of our population and because of the number of people adding into our population on an annual basis, the legal drinking, like people adding into the age bracket of drinking, I feel is still a decent funnel that we have. We are not there yet in terms of running out of
We don't have
people to
a
drink.
people problem.
Plus, we have a great potential in tier 2, tier 3 towns, which is fabulous, which is actually a very, very untapped, I would say, space currently that exists. So there are markets that are, you can see that there's a pockets and places and people that have the need. They want to experience all these things and they have the wealth, but they don't have places to go to. So you can see that now coming again. This is again a fairly new movement, about say 5 years or so.
So I can see that. I think most of the tier 2, tier 3 qualify for what you just said.
Yeah, so
People have
it's not like they're
money,
drinking
not
less.
many avenues to
Yeah,
spend, and they're well traveled.
yeah.
So now they exactly know what are they missing.
Yeah. And they're not drinking less, is what
Well,
I was saying. So they are definitely entering into this world with cocktails and with bars and with bartenders and with experiencing all of this. Say, a Bangalore or a Delhi maybe has been experiencing this for a bit. So they are kind of like a little jaded with that too much alcohol situation, bars, if they've been seeing that. But I think still there's still the funnel is, like I said, like it's constantly getting filled as well. So we are all right in currently. Yeah, it's maybe in the near future later.
three of your favorite bars, like which you are loving in last 1 year, let's say, or
India.
recently, India.
Oh my god, I love this bar called Outrigger. It's run by Arjit Bose. Definitely my number one bar currently. I wish I owned it. That's what
That's Goa.
in Goa, Panjim. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed. Okay, I have to really go back to Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, all the places that I've been to. Um,
Take your time.
so I'm literally looking at the top 10. I really like Hoots, which is in Vasant Vihar. I really enjoy this. I
I
like
haven't been there. I haven't been.
intimate, good, great conversation places. I like smaller, intimate bars for sure. I'm trying to think cocktail bars, right? We're
Yep.
talking about not just dives. Hmm. Spirit forward in Bangalore? Definitely. 100%. Bangalore. For sure. So I think I think that Bangalore, Goa.
Do we
Oh,
have?
Bandra Bon, I loved. I mean, I'm just trying to let's see. This is the problem when you just put me in the spot like that. I have to think of all the places that I've been to in the last. I really liked Bandra Bon. I really enjoyed Bombay Dark. Such a fun bar in Bombay. Actually, I have to go to Calcutta. I really have to go and see Nutcase. Everybody's been telling me. I haven't been to
I've
Cal
heard.
in a
Yeah,
while.
I haven't been
So
there.
I don't want to just name a place and haven't been to, but it's kind of like in my radar for sure. I want to go check it out. Yeah. And most, the little, yeah, they're not three, but they're many.
Noted. Minakshi, what's keeping you personally enriched? How do you work on yourself, your own growth? Is there anything you talked about that you read? So
Yeah.
we'll ask you some book recommendations, but before that, what keeps you nourished? How do you work on yourself?
So, I am professionally, of course, you've got pretty much all the information there is to get
No,
mostly.
personally, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a mom. I have an 8-year old. He keeps me really busy. He's just absolutely the joy. Um, and I have a dog. I have a husband. So I mean, I have the family side of it is full of a lot of action, and we are very closely knit between all of us as family. I've had great support of my in-laws. They always knew I'm gonna get into the liquor industry, bar industry. They were very supportive. How typically it can go the other
Yeah.
way around. My husband has always been fantastic. I
Is
don't
he
think I would
in
have been
is he
able to
in
do
in the
this.
industry as well?
He used to be in advertising and he's moved after COVID, between COVID. So we started a farm, he started doing that. And now he's kind of doing our food programming. He's a partner at Brook, which is our new bar in Gurgaon. We opened last year. So he's very much now kind of part of it. It's tough to work with your spouse though, I would say.
Ask me. I think it's
This
very,
is a
very
new thing. I
easy.
need to get
I
some
think it's
information.
extremely simple to work with your spouse. It's brilliant. My Sakshi, my wife, is my
Is she
co-founder.
listening? Is that why
I
you're
mean,
saying to the camera?
I don't take chances, and I would hope so.
No, I need to take tips from people who work with their spouses. It's a tough. It's new for me, but yeah, I love. I love the fact that we are very closely knit. I have extremely very, very blessed to have some amazing people. Like I was mentioning, some of the mentors and people that I've had from really early on in my life, who I've kind of ended up partnering with some way or the other. So I mentioned Young Dope initially, part of the journey has been my business partner. Vikram Achanta was the founder of Taliho. He's now our partner in India Bartenders Show.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and so it's really strange that all these people continued in your life 20 years hence, and it's really sometimes surreal that how does this happen. But yeah, I've had like this really amazing people, to constantly guide you, help you sort out your stuff. And I mean, I've been really lucky. It takes a village, like I say, and it's for everyone. It's not just for a child. I say it's for everyone. Like everybody needs that. I think set of cheerleaders and people to constantly tell you. I think that keeps me very much grounded. I have some amazing women and men that I look up to who I've met in the corporate world, who are till date such good friends of mine because, they're my sounding boards. They're the people I call the first when we think of an idea, we think of a brand name, we think of, and these are the people I talk to from with my HR issues, with, manpower problems that are happening and retention and culture and what do you do. Because these are people who've been there, done that for all these years in the corporate, right? So what better, like, so I think I'm very lucky to have that mentorship, I would say. um yeah, and I love to read. I'm a very outdoorsy person. It's always been very outdoorsy, so always up to something or the other, trekking, or either a trek or a MMA, or I was learning kickboxing last year. This year, I want to do something else. So, very much, very active. So, that keeps me very fulfilled, of course, and reading and, the usual. Yeah.
What are you reading right now? Or the last book?
I am right now reading this book by Kiran Desai called The Loneliness of Sunny and Sonia.
Fiction?
It's a Booker, yeah, it's a Booker Award, Booker Prize nominee, but yeah, she didn't win it. And yeah, it's a massive 670 pager. So I took 2 days off. I kind of fake it and I tell people, oh, I'm traveling and I'm sorry, no, I can't attend the meeting. So I have a little bit of it's an addiction sort of a situation. Then I read all night and then I get up in the morning, like, I just sleep at 4, 5, and then the next day is like all a blur, and then you kind of regret. So the next day is like, how you wake up partying all night and the next day you're. So I have a little bit of that issue, which I have to figure how
With
to.
books or
With books mostly, yeah. Yeah, that's what I do. So I lie. I lie to people about that.
I remember you were like when we met in Goa, you were talking about now you're thinking about, and you specifically said, I don't know if you remember or not, but you said something about that now you're intentionally also making sure that you meet people and let serendipity hit you. But I think were you
We
talking about
did talk
some
about that. Yeah, yeah,
were
yeah.
you talking about some personal transformation, some course or something that
No, I think that was to do with the fact that a lot of times you approach people assuming who they are, right? And that is something, don't judge a book by its cover. And I think that is where the conversation comes from, being more open. Like, I had never attended this conference this
hmm,
size,
hmm,
meeting so many people. I think I've been living in that bubble of my bar world bubble, very much so, and very happily doing that. But I think this was a chance to come out and really meet like incredible people. Like, I met many, many very interesting people, had great conversations. Somebody who runs places in Chennai, and then they were sharing about what they do, and I was like, oh my god, like this is really good. I should do more of this. Like, get out more. So I feel like it's part of your learning experiences, like with. So you are like kind of getting out of your comfort zone in a lot of ways, where you're like, okay, don't just go and assume that just a restaurant here does the same thing. What you talked about earlier about being a dirty business. I think there is a at the back end of it is that's the impression majority of the world has of us. I think we shouldn't have that impression about each other, at least. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So yeah, that's what I mean.
On that note, this is really beautiful, Minakshi. I think the most striking thing about this entire conversation is that I can clearly see that how you have moved forward with all your connections and relationship in life, and I think that's where probably you draw your
Yeah.
calmness and the satisfied bubble that you're in. I think it's one of the most important ingredients in somebody's life to be just content.
Oh yeah.
um,
Thank
so
you.
it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the pod. And thank you for agreeing to do this.
Thank you so much. I had such a good time. I didn't realize it's just finished already. Nice. Thank you so much for having me.